This program contains subject matter related to mental health and suicide. If you or anyone you know is in crisis, call or text 988 for free, 24/7, to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
I did spend roughly about 8 years of my childhood abroad. So half of my childhood was spent abroad. And I felt living in the US, a lot of people had childhood friends from like kindergarten, like we go back. And I was like, oh, I ain't got that. And I had a sense of loneliness. There was this hole in my heart that consistently felt as if people couldn't show up for me in the way that I wanted them to. And I wanted to make sure that when I went into this profession, that people feel seen. People feel that they are sitting with someone, that they feel safe in their vulnerability, and they feel as if they belong in the room with me right now in the moment.
Hello, I'm Vic Armstrong, and welcome to Strong Talk, a podcast by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. On this show, I talk to guests about the challenges and solutions to making mental health care accessible to all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. When I say the word therapist, you might picture someone clutching a notepad, peering at you over their glasses as you lie stretched out on the couch. Well, that image is totally outdated, and our guest today is living proof. Shani Tran is a licensed professional clinical counselor, author, and founder of the Shani Project. When she's not working with clients from underserved communities of color, she's bringing mental wellness tips and a few dance moves to a much bigger audience on TikTok. Shani is part of a growing number of mental health professionals who use social media to reach people where they actually are. And today, we're going to explore what's behind this movement and where it's headed. Shani, thank you for joining me on Strong Talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation. It's near and dear to my heart. I have a personal story with it. Let's dive in. I'm here. I'm present.
Well, we are all anxious to hear your personal story. I do want to ask you first, though, because, often when I talk about what I do, I'm a social worker. I work for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, but sometimes it's difficult because I do a number of different things. It's difficult for me to really put a label on exactly what it is I do. So when you introduce yourself to people, how do you introduce yourself? How do you define what you do?
It depends on the room, if I'm being honest. I feel as if I have this long resume of different things that I do, and I don't necessarily have to spill them all out in one room. And so I go with what feels right in that moment. And that kind of allows me to be unique in that I don't have to subscribe to all the things that I do. But for the most part, I will say I'm a therapist. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the room, because I feel like as soon as I say I'm a therapist, people are like, oh, okay. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
So for the most part, I would probably say that I'm a creative.
So how did you end up becoming a therapist? Did you always want to be a therapist?
No.
No.
My first major was actually theater. I loved being able to dip into different roles. I felt that gave me the outlet and freedom that I needed to express my emotions. And I loved the dramatic part of theater. I wanted really deep roles. Like in high school, I was in a play called The Children's Hour. Essentially, it was children in a mental institution, and loved being in that raw emotion. And then I realized I would probably have to keep auditioning for the rest of my life to have a stable job. And that just didn't sit right with me. I said, there's ways that I can go about dipping my toes in that, but I want something that is stable. And I remembered my high school psychology course was one of the few courses that I did not fall asleep in. So I changed my major to psychology. And then towards my last year, my, counselor, she was like, oh, you're going to need a master's, right? And I was like, oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? Okay. I mean, I've already committed. Here we are. So that's what ultimately led me to psychology, as I've always been intrigued by the mind, which I think is an intersection of theater when you have to really connect with the character and the emotions of that character. But the personalized version of that is my own childhood and things that happened to me in my childhood. And also, too, I'm a military child. And so I felt that I spent a great sense of not feeling like I belonged or not feeling like I fit in. Having been a military child, I did spend roughly about 8 years of my childhood abroad. So half of my childhood was spent abroad. And I felt living in the US, a lot of people had childhood friends from like kindergarten, like we go back. And I was like, oh, I ain't got that. Mm-hmm. And I had a sense of loneliness. And even though I come from this big, amazing family, I am the oldest of 6. It was, wait, is it 7? Why don't I know all my siblings? It is a very big blended family. I'm like, is it 6? Is it 7? Okay, with my mama, I am the oldest of 5. With the blended family, I am the oldest of 7. And so there was this hole in my heart that consistently felt as if people couldn't show up for me in the way that I wanted them to. And I wanted to make sure that when I went into this profession, that people feel seen. People feel that they are sitting with someone, that they feel safe in their vulnerability, and they feel as if they belong in the room with me right now in the moment.
Yeah. And you've also, with your creating on TikTok, on social media, you've also been able to tap into that creative side, that performing side. So that's fascinating. It's always interesting to me how people end up in the professions they end up in. And I found it especially interesting for people who end up in this mental health profession, because I don't know very many people who started off early in life saying, I want to be a clinician, I want to be a therapist, I want to be a psychologist or a social worker one day. Mm-hmm. So much of, even in your story, like some of it kind of resonates with me in a way. I grew up, and I'm a clinical social worker by training. I grew up son of a pastor in rural North Carolina. And so, in that sense, I was always taught that your life has purpose, that your life has meaning. You just have to find what that purpose, what that meaning is. And so it was later in life, though. It was not my initial thinking that I was going to be a social worker or mental health clinician, but I kind of found my path through it. But I'm also curious when I talk to people who are in the field, what do you like most about being a therapist?
I feel as if I've gotten asked this question often. And I like to pay reverence to me as a human being transitioning. And one of the things that I do love most right now about being a therapist is I feel such an honor to be a part of someone's story and listen to it. And not even just listen to it, but there's something beautiful in the essence of watching someone shift. Mm-hmm. And change, and the little things that happen. So say, for instance, if you have a client that comes in and they've cried most of the session, and then they come and they're mostly crying. And then you have a session where maybe halfway through, you're like, oh, wait, you weren't crying. What was that about? What? And then sometimes the client doesn't even know. So I think for me, one of the things that I love to point out is those little changes that take place in clients that they're not even aware of. I get such joy from that. And in all the years that I've been a therapist in private practice, I want to say that because I've been a therapist in other types of jobs, but as a private practice owner, I can honestly say I've never had a morning where I'm like, oh, I have to go to work. For the most part, I am my most authentic and relaxed self. And I only know that because I have like one of the rings that track. And whenever I'm in therapy with clients, I find it so interesting that I am in a restored state.
So now your therapy, because you do so much on social media, how much of your therapy is virtual versus in person?
All of it is virtual.
Okay.
I am licensed in Minnesota. I used to live there. And during the pandemic, I moved to Arizona and I stayed licensed there and I kept my clients virtual. I did take roughly about a year and a half off. That was to pursue my content creation dreams. And then that's not always stable, if we're going to be honest. And I realized with also having ADHD and working with my therapist, having so much downtime was not healthy for me.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I want to go back to therapy. I just don't want to burn myself out from it because I really do enjoy it. And so I shot off an email and honestly, all my old clients came back. Most of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must have done good. You must have done good work then.
Yeah.
That's got to be gratifying. Now, for those who don't know or not aware of your social media content, can you describe what kind of videos, what kind of content it is that you post?
Yes, I can describe it as I buy time by saying it that way. So it's a combination right now of, I would say the transition that I'm in my life right now is that I did experience my first death. My friend from high school passed away of cancer. So
sorry.
For me, that has been a shift in that because this is the first time I'm experiencing grief on that level, I now get to show up for my clients differently, for my content differently. There's a different emotion that I'm tapping into, things that I'm learning. I feel like you would know this. You can read about these things in a book, but to have true empathy and go through it, to be able to tap into that emotion, know what it feels like viscerally, physically, somatically, emotionally, mentally, all of those things.
Right.
So right now, a lot of my content comes from my own personal life in hopes that people see a real person. And also, too, I want people to know when you work with a therapist, we struggle too. That is the message that I want people to know is I am human and I struggle too. It's a combination between grief and ADHD. Those are two very, very, I like to say the color yellow in my life right now, very bright themes. Knowing that I was diagnosed with ADHD, it's been about a year and a half now.
So of all the platforms, why TikTok?
It was the pandemic. That's where I really gained traffic.
Yeah.
I honestly had no intentions of getting as far as I got on TikTok. My career goes back as far as early YouTube days. I was on YouTube for years. And TikTok came around during the pandemic and I said, why not? Also, it's short form. I don't have to spend time setting up lighting, recording, editing, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I think the sound was okay, that sort of clapping sound. And I offered some mental health advice and my phone was like, ding, 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 ding. Also, I didn't know I was neurodivergent, but the ding was dopamine. So I was like, ding, oh, that feels nice. My phone ain't never blown up like this. Oh, all these people. Yeah.
Oh, that's affirmation.
I was like, oh, people like this? Again, going back to, I feel that's been the question I asked. Oh, people like this? They want more? And so I kept posting and I felt during that time it was easier. I wasn't in the mindset of lighting, captions, because now I look back at the old videos. I'm like, oh, girl, the caption was all the way off the screen. It barely could read it. The timing was off, but they did really good. My videos did really good. And that is ultimately what created the career that I have today.
Now, is there one that's your favorite of all the things you posted?
Right off the bat, my brain actually went to the scariest one that I posted.
Okay.
And that one was when I came out as bisexual. That was a very scary video for me to post because I felt that was opening up a different part of my life. And at that time, I hadn't experienced women. And I felt, how can you say this if you haven't even experienced women? And I had a great supportive queer community around me and continued to support me and encourage me. And as I sort of stepped into my queerness, I wanted people to be seen in that way of, hey, you can be bisexual or, say you are lesbian or however you identify, and your experience doesn't determine your sexual identity. However, if we're being honest, anything you put on the internet, once you put it out there, it's up to be scrutinized, to be criticized. And I was afraid of what people would say. And it actually went really well.
Wow, fascinating. Your social media content, do you have a target audience that you're aiming for?
People that don't feel seen.
But it's not your audience is not necessarily young people, older people. So you're speaking to anybody and everybody.
I would say for the most part, yes. Basically because I post different types of content. So I do have a series that was on my channel roughly about 6 months ago where I moved out for 30 days. Honestly, it was just my own personal journey, being a parentified child, never living alone, being that hyper independent person. I'm a therapist. I show up for people there. I show up for my husband. I show up for my kids, my friends. And I came to a point where I had to ask myself, what have I given myself? So I moved out of my home for 30 days, got an apartment by myself. And honestly, I wanted to share it, but had no idea that so many people would relate to that. And not even just people that are in relationships. I had one message that talked about, I have a roommate. I've always lived with roommates, never lived alone. I kind of want to move out and live alone. People who have, been in relationships and they're not sure if they want to get married and trying to figure out that. So it really depends on what's happening in my life. I choose to share that. And then I'll realize through the comments, oh, people really do be struggling with this just like me. Oh, y'all like this? I feel like that's the thought I have a lot with my content of, wait, y'all like this?
So now, do you feel like your presence on social media, does it help you in building relationship with the people that you're interacting with your clients?
When you say my clients, do you mean in my private practice or?
Yeah, maybe I need to take a step back because I'm also curious as to whether your social media content helps you to build your client caseload. Do you find people reach out to you through your social media content? And then for the people that do reach out to you through your social media content, do they often share with you that there's anything about that connection that resonates with them?
Yes, I feel that's a loaded question. Let me figure out how to answer it. Majority of my content creation career, I've been full. So I want to say that. It's very rare that someone will see me on social media, reach out to me through my website, and then become a client. But when I did come back to therapy, last year, I did have more open spots and later would find out, oh, yes, maybe they found me through social media. The thing is, in my paperwork, though, it does state I am someone that is on social media. It is not a requirement to follow me. Right. And sometimes, too, I actually encourage not to follow me only because I make a lot of different types of content. And so let's say if I talk about anxiety and the anxiety of shooting a text message off to someone that you are having conflict with, that could be any one of my clients, right? And so I say that to say that I don't want them to then be thinking, oh, is that video about me? Because it's never about them.
Right.
HIPAA would never do that, confidentiality. And so sometimes I know that when you see me on social media, me personally, I don't think I'd want to follow my therapist. If I'm being quite honest, I don't think I want to follow her. I don't think I want to know you like that.
It's interesting. I've never really thought about that. So now, do you see yourself more as a therapist or as a social media presence? How do you separate the two?
I would say they are both intertwined because being a therapist is what led me to content creation on TikTok in the first place.
Yeah.
And so the knowledge that I have of showing up with people, educational knowledge, my schooling, and also my theater background too, if I'm being honest, that all pours into my content creation. So I don't say that I separate them. I would say more so they come together in this uniformed, beautiful, sometimes chaotic way.
Yeah. And your work on social media, and I call it work.
It's work.
It sounds like you really enjoy it, but it is work.
Yeah.
And so between being a therapist with a caseload, and then, sometimes people go to social media and that's their outlet to get away from the world. But that's, you're going into another workspace. So how do you balance the two? And when do you find time to just unplug and unwind?
My boundaries are thick. My boundaries are very, very, very thick.
They would have to be.
They have to be. And I get asked that question quite a bit, or not even a question, but I get told that by my friends where they're like, girl, how are you doing all of this? And for me, because of my neurodivergent brain, I thrive in routine. I thrive in being able to also rest in a way that feels creative. So for me, I do have times where I see clients, and then I have times where I do content creation. And I've had to learn that I can't post every day. It's just not, it's not going to work for me.
Right.
And also too, sometimes I have to let myself be okay with it doesn't need to be perfect. When I say perfect, lighting, script, angle, boom, 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 because honestly, the videos that do really well are the ones where I hold up a camera and I'm talking, rambling about my life, and there's barely any transitions, barely any filters or things like that. People want real, honest, raw content from me.
Yeah.
And so I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. So I do not have social media on my personal phone. So Instagram.
Good for you.
TikTok, YouTube. So I don't have it. If I'm out and about, people will send me Instagram videos. Sometimes my friends, and I'm like, now, I can't see this. I cannot read this. And so that's how I separate the two, because social media is work.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my neurodivergent brain was very much struggling when I would have social media on my personal phone. Am I working? Or am I here to browse? What are we doing? And then even if I'm here to browse, I would be like, oh, I have an idea. And then before you know it, it's an hour later, I'm at my office writing out a script and I'm supposed to be in bed.
Now, unfortunately, not all of the content on social media promotes mental health. And in fact, there's a lot of unhealthy stuff on social media. So how do you advise people to navigate it? Because you're a social media presence. But when you're talking, especially talking to parents, how do you advise people to navigate social media? And how do you navigate it?
The first thing is, for me, right away, if something resonates with me, I don't necessarily think of it as therapeutic. My first thought is I feel seen. Because you can feel seen from advice and it not be coming from someone who is licensed. And also too, let's acknowledge that licensed people can be given some advice that's a little shady too. And so when it comes to navigating social media, it's knowing that that is that person's POV, that is that person's experience, and you can take pieces of that. However, if you're really going to incorporate that into your life, making sure that you do your own research behind it, right? So I feel as if right now, what do I feel is a hot topic? Attachment. Okay. That is everywhere. Attachment. People, I see people talking about them in the videos where they will say, my therapist said this. Sometimes this is my attachment style. And it's gathering that information. Okay, cool. Let's say if you feel seen, then taking it to do your own research and looking up, like, what does this attachment mean? How does this attachment show up? Versus just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
What do you have people who reach out to you that are in crisis through social media?
I'm very picky about the DMs that I open because knowing my license, even though it is social media and knowing who I am as a person, I know that if I saw that type of message, that's not a message that, one, my brain is like, you read it. Mm-hmm. It says read on there. So it's not like, what's the train? What's the track? Can it be tracked? I'm thinking about all of those. And I don't have capacity to show up for people like that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Reading DMs and then in a way, it's informative therapy, and we don't have any sort of contract in place or anything like that. So I'm very picky about opening my DMs is the best way that I can put that answer.
Now, having said that, do you have any advice or thoughts to people who say they get their therapy from TikTok? Because there are some TikTok therapists out there.
Yeah, that's not therapy. And the reason why it's not therapy is because you're not talking. Therapy, the therapist shouldn't really be talking most of the session. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's some sessions where you ping pong and the client is, I need advice. What's my next steps? And we get together and we really come together to figure out a solution. But majority of the time, I am listening. So if you are spending time listening, AKA watching TikTok videos, that is not therapy. You're not talking. You're not sharing your experience. You feel seen? Yes. However, it's not therapy.
Yeah.
It's helpful. I'm not saying it can't be helpful. Like, there's not a black and white of it. It can be helpful, and it is not therapy.
Yeah, and I have a much more modest social media presence than what you have, but I have had people to reach out to me, from time to time that are in crisis, and it's tough because, I agree. It's difficult, number one, to really relate to and help someone when your only relationship with them is a DM. So that makes it tough. But then also you also have to guard your own mental health, and you just can't spend your time scouring your DMs looking for who's in crisis that you're trying to help. So it is difficult. And I have had situations where I have advised people to call 988, or sometimes I've tried to connect someone with help. But aside from someone who specifically spells it out in your DM, are there signs you look for when you are interacting with people who may not be your client or your caseload, but something that says to you, this is a person that's in trouble? Are there things that you see from things that people post or say on social media that raise red flags for you?
This might sound harsh, but I'm going to say it. I think this goes back to my thick boundaries, where when I go on social media and I'm scrolling, I tell myself we are not a therapist. That is not something that I need to look for. It's not something that I need to recognize. That's not my job here. That's not my role. And I'm pretty sure my algorithm thinks that I like cats, lots of memes, lots of dirty jokes, and I've designed it that way on purpose. I have no problem hitting not interested. As they say in the comments, I built this algorithm brick by brick by brick. And when something comes in, absolutely not, because I'm taking care of so many people in my life, from my clients to my children to my family, my friends, that I have to allow myself to be in my humanness that wants to just scroll and just look at the internet, because I'm not in a therapeutic relationship. Right. So I don't, if I see, say, a video of someone crying, and say like the captions are, 2 days ago, I lost my brother. Oh, okay. Scroll. Just because I have to be aware of my own mental capacity, and a lot of my own therapeutic work has been tapping into what happens to my body somatically. And I have this keen awareness of when my nervous system starts to be like, okay. And I'm like, no, nope.
As someone is, you describe yourself as being neurodivergent, and also being a Black female. What has it been like just even finding your space and your niche in this space? Because I find as a Black male, sometimes it's different. You're sometimes perceived different, and even in building relationships with your caseload, sometimes it's different. But then also it's different because there are people out there who look like you, who are looking for people like you, who can relate to them. So can you talk a little bit about what is it like, both in the therapy space, in the content creation space, but doing this as a Black female, and as you mentioned, you've had your own challenges, whether it's you're trying to find your place in the world and where you fit in, and then your neurodivergent thinking. What's this whole process been like for you?
How long do we have? How long do we have? I was sitting there.
We can always do a 2-part, so take your time.
Listen, it's been challenging. It's been rewarding. One of the things that I love about the work is, and just me showing up, is I'm constantly learning about myself and about others. So even if I get a new client and say they identify as a Black female, I like to let them know culture is not a monolith. So I don't assume that how my Black household was, that is also how your Black household was. And so sometimes I ask questions, not maybe because I don't understand, but because I want to gain understanding from how you grew up. Now, when it comes to me showing up, I really honestly had to get comfortable in my own Blackness, if I'm being honest, because growing up, living abroad, I felt that a lot of my friends that were Black would consistently tell me, you talk white. You talk white. Even when I would come home for the summers, coming from Sicily to Chicago is where I was born. You talk white. Oh, you think you better. Look at your hair. I felt that was the way that people viewed me, that sometimes I would even try to pretend to be what I thought Blackness was. And still to this day, sometimes I cringe at myself when I was sitting in a Black salon for the first time by myself. I went by myself without my mom, and I thought the cool thing to do would be to say the N-word. Like, that's how I show them that I'm Black enough. It did not roll off the tongue well. And I just remember people in the salon looking at me like, girl, what did you just say?
I can imagine.
And I remember sitting in the chair, be like, well, this is how, this is how my family talks in Chicago, and this is how you show up, and being Black. I don't want to sound white to you. I want you to see me. I'm Black. See proof. I'm Black. And honestly, I realized I had to build a community that made me feel safe in what Blackness is to me.
Yeah.
And that's really when I started to step into my own, as far as, the things that I say, how I dress, how I show up. And I love me today.
Well, good.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm weird. I'm awkward. And you gonna get what you gonna get. But at the end of the day, I gotta live with myself, not you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are thrilled that you are here and doing what you're doing, because one of the things that I do with AFSP is a lot of my work is around creating access to resources, and really thinking differently about access, that it's not just more of the traditional resources, but it's about creating resources that are culturally relevant, relatable to people's lived experience, and probably most importantly, thinking about how you create resources that people are going to be willing to use. And so, your creativity around your content, while you're not creating content to build a caseload, you are creating content that in a lot of ways is creating access because it's allowing people to be able to think about and see and hear about mental health in a different way and see themselves in that mental health space in a different way. So I absolutely could commend you on what you're doing. I'm going to have to step my social media game up now because you're going to make me look bad. Do you have any upcoming projects or plans that you're working on that you'd like to share?
I'm currently in the stages of trying. Be careful what you put into the universe. Hold on, give me a minute. I'm currently in the stages of writing a show that has a podcast kind of feel with behavioral activation with my guests. So behavioral activation may be, let's say if I have a guest and they say, oh my gosh, I've always been afraid of the dark. Okay, behavioral activation. What can we do on the podcast episode to help you start to overcome this fear?
Wow. That's fascinating. Have you always been self-aware, or did that come with therapy and being a therapist? Because you do seem to understand yourself very well.
Thank you. I'll take that. I'll take that comment.
Do you feel that way?
No. Yes. Because sometimes I don't like it.
Has it been a process to get to that point, or have you always been somewhat self-aware?
It has taken time getting to that point, which I feel is like a great segue into a part of the episode. So when I was in undergrad and I had my first intensive suicidal thoughts, I was not aware of what was happening, if I'm being honest. I was very much out of my window of tolerance. And I don't even want to use like therapeutic terms for this. I was just sad. I felt very lonely. I felt people didn't see me. I couldn't understand how 1 hour ago I was in the bar, woo, dancing. Me and my friends are like, I love you. And I'm like, I love you too. Get home safe. Oh my gosh. And then I come home and my safe haven throughout this time in my life was I had a walk-in closet in my first apartment, and I would go in my walk-in closet, close door, and just sit and cry. And it was very hard for me to understand, and I was not aware, how was this happening? And I very much felt that no one would care. No one would know. No one would care. No one cares about you like that. They'd be, whatever. Yeah, okay. Wow. And keep moving with their lives. And so a part of my journey was becoming aware of how I feel when I'm with people. And is that, how do I put it? Am I going off of what I want to feel when I'm with them? Or is it a matter of how they make me feel seen? And I definitely would say in my college years, it was very much how I want to feel. You are my closest friends. Oh my gosh, I love you. Like, this is what we're doing. And majority of those, I think I have one friend.
Yeah.
That is still in my life that I met from college.
Interesting. You know what? One day we'll have another conversation because so much of what you can say, what you share, I can relate to in different ways. Even, some of the way you saw things growing up. Believe it or not, growing up the son of a preacher, probably, leaves some of the same scars that some other, including not knowing how to fit in. I think being a preacher's kid is one of those things too that makes you're always struggling to figure out, how do people see me? How should they see me? And then how do I fit in? Because they say, the preachers' kids are the worst kids. And I think part of it is because preachers' kids are just trying to find a way to fit in. But that's a conversation for another day. We'll have that conversation when I come on your podcast and you help me to get over my dislike for cats. I cannot stand a cat. So I need you to help me with that. They creep me out. I'm gonna need you to.
The crazy thing about it is it reminds me of so the one thing that I will say that I feel people will find out if they follow me from here is that I am poly. I'm open in my marriage. And my girlfriend, when her cat came out for the first time, when I went to her apartment, in my head, I was like, don't kick that cat. Don't kick that cat. And I was like, I don't even know why I want to kick the cat. Because here's the thing. I had cats in undergrad, but I'm very well aware I had cats because I couldn't have a dog. Cats are very acceptable in apartments, and I wanted a pet. And so it's funny that you say that because I think they've grown on me a little bit. But for me, I think if I'm being completely honest, I want to come home and I want my animal to be like, oh my God, where you been, girl? I love you so much. How you doing? How's your day? Oh, let me sit next to you. And I feel when I go to my girlfriend's house, her cat is like, oh my God, you're here again. Are you going to feed me? And it just feels like it's not transactional. It's just you take from me.
Let me tell you something. In my mind, a cat and a possum are the same thing.
Oh.
Cats, possums, raccoons, they are all like the same thing. I don't want to touch them. I don't want to cuddle them. I don't want them to touch me. So you help me with that when I come on your show once you get that show up and running.
Okay, I got you. We'll start with kittens.
I have, you know what? I have a story about kittens. I'll tell you that one sometime too.
Okay.
But we'll save that one. But I do want to give you just if there's anything that we have not covered.
Yeah.
Any thoughts that you'd like to leave with our audience? I want to give you space to share anything that you'd like to share that maybe I have not asked you or that may have popped into your head.
I think about the times that we're living in and the support that people need. And I think a great question to ask people when they come to you is, are you looking for advice or do you just want me to listen? That's a great question that I want to equip people with. And also, I feel as if sometimes people don't cathartically let themselves feel in front of other people because other people may not be able to handle it. If I'm being honest, I very much am assessing, if I cry in front of you, what you gonna do with that? Do you know what to do with that? And if you don't know what to do with that, I don't mind. You know what? You're crying. I'm not sure what to do. How can I help you? How can I support you? I really want to show up for you. Naming what it is, because I feel as if because of what people are going through and we're all at capacity, if we're being honest. We're all at capacity, but community and support, that is a protective factor when it comes to intrusive thoughts. Is what does your support system look like? Do you have someone that you can lean on? If I have a client that wants to die by suicide, the first thing I'm thinking is, who is in your support system? Who can you call? One, I recognize telling someone, okay, let's go to the hospital. Let's be honest. There are people that fear talking about that because that's the first answer that people give. Freak out. Oh my gosh. Okay. And it's sit with the person, be with them, ask them, is it okay if I hold your hand while you talk to me? Is it okay? Do you need a hug right now? Really be in connection and see that person. And the reason why I give that advice is because when I had my attempt in undergrad, it was my friend who picked up the phone call that honestly saved my life. I didn't have to explain anything. I called crying and he was like, I am on my way. And he came over and he just sat with me and I just cried and cried. He didn't ask questions. And then once I calmed down a little bit, he asked me, he said, do you feel comfortable being alone tonight? If not, what 'cause it's a guy-girl friendship.
Right.
How you want me to go? You want me to lay in the living room? You want me to lay, like, what? I don't want you to, I want to be respectful of you. And I said, honestly, can you just like lay in the bed and just watch me sleep? I viscerally, physically don't want to feel alone. I feel so alone in my mind that is what would be helpful to me. And he said, okay. And then the next day he said, are you good? What do you need? And so I think sometimes it's not about, the thing is, when you're sitting with someone with those feelings and those thoughts, what you say, we don't need to find a solution. That's not the purpose. The purpose is not to find a solution. The purpose is someone is looking to be seen, and you are the person that they've chosen to call. And even if you don't know what to say, it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know what to do and I don't know what to say, but maybe we can figure it out together, because then that bridges community support. You're not alone. So that's what I wanted to leave with.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that, because so much of what you shared, it all comes back to connection. I mean, that's what you do. You create connection, and we appreciate you for that. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Shani, for joining me on Strong Talk.
Thank you.
And thank you also to our audience for being with us today. And if you're not familiar, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, or AFSP, is America's leading suicide prevention organization and the largest private funder of suicide prevention research, with local chapters in all 50 states, D.C., and Puerto Rico. AFSP offers education, law support, and advocacy programs and events nationwide, including the Out of the Darkness Walks. You can learn more about AFSP at afsp.org. If you or anyone you know is in distress, call or text 988 for free 24/7 to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Because you matter. Your life matters. Your pain matters. You are not alone. And that is Strong Talk.